Welcome back to Dobbeldans Cross Country Skiing podcast for the first episode about 2023-2024 FIS World Cup competitions. Another season starts in the place it has started for already 11 editions, 11 last editions. We're in Ruka, Finland, and it was quite an eventful season opener. Witnessed some massive upsets, but also great racing from top-tier athletes from around the world. Yesterday I've published a preview of the whole weekend in Ruka. If you're interested in this one, make sure to check it out. The link is down in the description. But I'm gonna go straight to the action from today, as there is a lot to talk about. The sprint definitely delivered this year. So the first day of what used to be called Ruka Triple, it was like a mini tour, but it is no more. There are just 3 separate races, no combined classification. Was once again a classic sprint, sticking to tradition. It always was like this, that on Friday and Saturday we had classic races, sprint and distance, and then on Sunday distance race in skate. So following the same scheme as pretty much all the preseason competitions. 2 weeks ago we had the ones in Munio, Finland. Last weekend it was Gällivare and Beitostolen, and they all had classic sprint, then distance classic, and then distance freestyle. Now the conditions in Ruka this year, at least today, but it's probably gonna stay like this for tomorrow and for Sunday too, were really good. Minus 10 degrees, hard packed snow, very well prepared tracks. When it gets a little bit warmer in previous years, we could witness some slushy snow forming on the final uphill, but that was not the case today. Also, this weather really helps waxers to prepare the skis. A reminder that this year we're running fluor free, and no one was caught today with fluor on their skis, which is real good. Let's hope it can stay like this for the entirety of the season. What stays consistent is definitely the sprint course in Ruka. It hasn't really been changed since early 2000 when it was introduced to the World Cup. There was only that slight change of the second downhill, or more of the bend in that downhill a couple of years ago, but it doesn't really change the race dynamics anyway. The stadium is the high point of the course, so the athletes hit the steep downhill like 10-15 seconds into the race, reaching around 60k an hour at the bottom. Then what follows is a long but not super steep uphill up to a hairpin. They turn left into the second downhill, the one that has been slightly reprofiled, and they start the second, much steeper and harder uphill. It starts a little bit on a shallower side, but really ramps up at the end when approaching the stadium arena, before a flat run into the finish after 90 degrees left-hand bend. It's very hard, as always. It's always a brutal test of who's in what condition for the early part of the season, and most of the time the sprints play out in a way that decisive move is made on the final hill or just after it. That being said, positioning for the last uphill is super important, and the fight for good position to start it can really hit up already on the first part of the course. But the action on the course already hit up today at 10 a.m. That's when the qualifying hits started. And it was a little bit of a surprise, because we certainly didn't expect Jasmine Joensuu to win this one just in front of Jonna Sundling, who was a favorite for this one, alongside with Emma Ribom and Kristine Stavos-Skistad. That was like a top 3 in the odds, and yeah, no one really else apart from this trio was mentioned as a favorite. Even it was sometimes narrowed to just Sundling and Sistad. But yeah, Joensuu won the qualifying hits. Then followed 3 Swedes, Sundling and Ribom, that was surely expected. What wasn't really expected was Frida Karlsson performing very well, fourth in the qualifying heats, and also Tia Olkonen and Amanda Sari, great performance from Finns with a bit lower ranking. They started really late, and that affected in pushing out some top tier sprinters from last season out. And we've got a couple more Swedes as expected. Joanna Hagström, Linn Svan, Moa Lundgren. Skistad, who I already mentioned, was down in 11th, but I wouldn't worry about that. She lost like 7 seconds to Ingrid Andrea Gulbrandsen in the preseason sprint in Beitostølen in the qualifying session, only to win it in front of her in the final. And speaking of Ingrid, she was in 26th. Now, if you watch my episodes from Munio and the recap of Beitostølen action in the preview of Ruka, maybe you remember that I was super happy to see her compete in World Cup. Not too good of a qualifying, but I think just it's not entirely a course that suits her. And the course definitely didn't suit Maja Dahlqvist today. So the sprint overall classification winner from last season was knocked out. She finished in 33rd. She battled with an illness early in the October, and that really affected her preparation. Also, a lot of Germans knocked out. Laura Gimler in 31, Pia Fink, who won in Munio, the sprint in Munio, she was 32. Victoria Karl, also she was really good in sprints last year, 33rd. So quite a lot of upsets. Also Lotta Udnesveng, 36th. Yeah, quite a lot of upsets already in the first sprint of the season. Moving on to the men's side, that one was won by Markus Grote, so another surprise. I thought it will be between Erik Valnes and Kleibo. It was Kleibo for me if he feels okay after COVID. It looks like he is slightly affected, not like super affected, but there's definitely had been some impact on Johannes. He finished 4th, but Grote wins just like in Gällivare, just in front of Valnes. Third was Emil Likkari, so the further down the list Finns performed really well in front of their fans. Paul Goldberg, who was really good last year, he was 3rd here, finished qualifying in 11th. And we have got a lot of Norwegians, with Swedes rounding up the top 30. We have Pellegrino on 25th. Now, that's quite far for Pellegrino, but that's a classic sprint. So I mentioned that yesterday. I didn't really expect him to perform too well, but that got a reality check further down into the competitions. And Edwin Anger just advancing, so it was really close between him and Grotte in Gällivare, and here in the qualifying hits on the opposite sides of spectrum, Grotte winning and Edwin just getting into quarterfinals. Unlike with the women's sprint or the qualification itself, we don't really have anyone major missing, like an equivalent of Maja Dahlqvist or even Pia Fink. This is who in the sprinters field currently. And with qualifying behind us, we can move on swiftly to the hits. So one change in regards to this one, comparing to competitions in Munio, Beitostølen, Gällivare, the positions in the hits are not fixed. So in the preseason competitions, there wasn't drawing, unlike here. So it works the way that athletes from spots 1 to 10 from qualifying choose their hit in the reverse order. So the first one is the 10th, then 9th, and so on to the first one. And then from 11th to 30th they choose based on positions they got in the qualifying. So after the winner of the qualifying session, next one is 11th, then 12th, and so on until the 30th. Now, why does it matter? Well, it matters because on one hand you want to race as soon as possible, as early as possible, because if you race in quarterfinal 1, it gives you more time to recover until semi-final 1 than if you race in quarterfinal 2 or quarterfinal 3. Similar, if you race in semi-final 1, you get more time to recover for the final than if you race in semi-final 2. The caveat to that is if your race is stacked with top tier sprinters, you might not make it out of the quarterfinal or later the semi-final. So you wanna choose a heat that either you suspect will go fast and you will be able to snatch a place in top 3, top 4 at least, to go at least on time, if not on the top 2 positions, or a hit easy enough that you can safely get away with top 2. So in quarterfinal 1, we have already 3 great sprinters: Jonna Sundling, Christine Stavas-Schistad, and Nadine Fendrich. Now, Nadine was second in overall sprint classification last year, lost out to Maja Dahlqvist in Lahti. Jonna Sundling is obviously the current world champ and Olympic champion in sprint, and Christine Stavas-Schistad had an amazing season finale last year. Last 4 sprints she won, and I was quite surprised that first Nadine chose that quarterfinal. It's quite hard to beat Jonna and Christine, and I wouldn't suspect them to go too hard because they are not just big engines in the sprint. They also can win it on a last 100-meter dash. So interesting choice by Nadine, but once she got that spot in quarterfinal, I would go on the safe side and try to drive it as fast as possible home, so you increase your chance of getting on time. But that one went really slow, and out of the gate it was slower than other hits by quite big margin. I set up by myself like an intermediate checkpoint to check on the hits at the hairpin, and in comparison to the fastest quarterfinal, which I believe was either 4th or 5th, the one with Jessie Diggins in it, this one was like 4 seconds slower, so no chance of getting out of this one on time. And in the end, it was Sundling and Schistad getting that top 2 spot, with Fendrich wishing that 3:03:07 was enough, but it wasn't to get out on time, and the rest was distance by a big margin. The second one, we get 2 Swedes, 2 Finns, Rosie Brennan and Ingrid Andrea Gulbrandsen, and this one was won by Emma Ribom. She waited to the last uphill. Like, she drove it quite easy from the downhill, from the second downhill. The first part was led by Gulbrandsen, but she slightly faded when reaching that first pinch point, which is the hairpin, and that's when the positioning fight really starts for the second uphill. And Ribom accelerated on the second uphill, got out quite safely, and Rosie Brennan just in front of Joanna Hagström, and she throws out the Swede in quarterfinals because this one was also quite slow. Ingrid was at some point even last. No, not last one. Kahara was quite back, but she was overtaken on the last uphill by Hilla Niemela. She crawled back to 4th. So not too bad for the World Cup debut from Ingrid. On an easier course, I think she has a chance to get into even a final. But that's a song for the future. We move on to third quarterfinal with quite an interesting field. So Frida Karlsson with a very good qualifying time, Julia Kern, who is already quite an established sprinter, and Karlsson drove it for the start. She didn't have too hard of a getaway, but once she got to the front, she was really strong, and she was really strong on the on the final uphill. That was quite expected, but she was surprisingly strong on the flat finish. This one was won by Julia Karlsson second, just in front of Lilin Pera, but that was fortunately quite fast, mostly due to Karlsson, and Lilin Pera managed to get out on time. Quarter-final fourth. Now this one was with the winner of qualifying, Jasmine Joensuu. She went straight to the front, but didn't drove it like super hard. Second was Lin Svan, quite close, and the rest was distance quite heavily. And the final quarter-final for women, and here that's Jessie Diggins is definitely one of the biggest surprises for today for me. She went super hard out in the quarterfinals and semifinals, almost like not her in the classic, because in freestyle she's quite good for the sprints, but classic it hasn't been good for her since like ages. And yeah, but she was super strong, drove it from home all the way to the finish, properly distanced Moa Lundgren and Katarina Hennig, but it was so fast. I think that was the only quarterfinal that got under 3 minutes, that Hennig on third got on time. The pace was too hard for Anna Svensson, who was real good and in Munio and in Beitostølen, and she's out in quarterfinals already. Then we had 5 quarterfinals for men, and that one had classic duo of first quarterfinal, Klæbo and Valnes, and nobody wanted to go with Klæbo and Valnes. You can see just by the numbers, only 20 plus apart from Valnes and Klæbo, and they went quite slow. They didn't pace it too hard, even with Edwin Anger in the field, but yeah, Edwin not in too good of a shape early in that at least here in Ruka. In Gällivare he was slightly better. Jules Chapa tried to challenge the Norwegian duo. He got quite close on the uphill, but then faded on the flat running. Then the second heat, and that one was won by Lauri Vuorinen, and we had a major upset in form of Markus Grote colliding with not Petter Nordhook. I wish that would be Petter Nordhook. I wish we could see Petter Nordhook in World Cup, but that's Even Nordhook. They tangled their skis on the first uphill just before the hairpin. Grote broke his pole, and that was the end of the day for him. He was super sad about it, but that's it. He will have another chance to shine in Gällivare in front of his home crowd, so let's hope he will be able to make most out of his great form early in the season. But yeah, Vuorinen and Nordhook getting out. That run was also not super fast, so Valerio Gront on third, who was in Gällivare and performing not too bad, misses out on semi-finals. Then the third run, and that one was won by Ben Ogden, who distanced, maybe not distance, but he was in front of 2 Norwegians. Ansgar Evensen, very good in Beitostølen. Paul Goldberg, he doesn't have too good of an introduction to this season, and that sprint in Ruka only confirms it. So Ogden and Evensen get out in top 2. Also Lukas Shanava had a bad one. Maybe he will be able to pick up the form in the latter part of the season, because he's quite a good sprinter. then the quarterfinal 4, and that was the fast one with all top 4 guys getting out to semifinals, and Federico Pellegrino won it. So I said yesterday and in the qualifying recap that I didn't really expect Pellegrino to be so good in classic sprint. There was an interview just before the sprints with him, and he said that yes, maybe his body is slightly declining, but he now races a bit more with his head, and that really helps him to make most of his current abilities. And he was looking real strong on the last uphill and the whole finish, like whole last half a kilometer. Federico just turned on a beast mode and ran away with Richard Jouve. Third was Joni Mäki and fourth was Harald Amundsen, getting out with really good times as lucky losers. And then quarterfinals, 2 Norwegians getting out of it, Mats William Jensen, who was quite good in Beitostølen, and Havard Solstaugbel. And that's quarterfinals for you. We move on to semifinals, and that already had quite a stacked field. Ribom, Zundling, Schistad, Kern, Brennan, and Lilin Pera. So we have 4 quite established, well-known worldwide sprinters, and Emma Ribom took it home, and the duo Ribom-Zundling really distanced Schistad, so that was not a promising semi-final for Schistad in terms of perspectives for the final. I mean, initially she wasn't sure that she will get to the final because she needed to wait for the time. She got there eventually, but Julia Kern wasn't so lucky. But yeah, Schistad looked really concerned already after that semi-finals. Didn't head straight after the race to the ski check facility. And in the second semi-final, we had some false start action. So Frida Karlsson had a major jump start, got a yellow card for that. On the second take, she started correctly, fought her way to the front, and but it wasn't actually on the uphill. So on the final uphill, she stayed behind Joensuu, and then punched real hard on the flat finish. So that was quite impressive. You would expect Karlsson, at least the Karlsson from last year, to try to fight her way on the uphill where she's stronger because she's lighter. She isn't that muscular as all these sprinters, and because she primarily targets distance races. So that was super impressive. Maybe a bit more strength training this off-season from Karlsson, and her not only compatriot but the training group partner Lynn Svan gets out on time just behind Joensuu, and GC Diggins also started this one really hard out of the gate, but faded on the last uphill. She didn't have that turbo that she was able to use in quarterfinal. Maybe she should have conserved a little bit of that, and in case of that, maybe we would see her in final. But for a classic sprint, that was already quite a good display of her skills. Then we have 2 semi-finals of men, and the semi-final one was won by Valnes in front of Kleibo, and that was a really slow one. Once again, Valnes and Kleibo didn't want to drive it, and nobody else wanted to take it up, so it ended up with Valnes Kleibo getting to the final, and just them from semi-final 1. From semi-final 2, we had carbon copy of the quarter-final where Pellegrino and Jouve were. Pellegrino really strong on the final uphill. and from final uphill and up to the finish. Juve in second, Ansgar Evensen and Mats William Jensen getting on time, although Jensen was properly gapped by the top three, and Taugbel had some problems, so that denied him a chance to fight for the final. And we're left with creme de la creme, last two runs, final of women and then final of men. And in the sprint final of women, it was unlikely victory from Emma Ribom, who denied the odds and distance Christine Stavas-Schistad on the final uphill, and then gapped Jonna Sundling on the flat finish. So, and this one where we can go a little bit more into the tactics. So Schistad really didn't want to lead this one out, and that's quite understandable because she's way taller than all of these girls. She's also a bit more muscular, a bit wider in the shoulders, so if she would lead the group into this descent, she provides so much draft, and then the lighter Swedes could punch away from her on the uphills. So she wanted to stay deep into the pack with Sundling and Ribom at the front, and in theory that's good tactics. The problem was, once they reached the top of the first hill, Ribom and Sundling kicked really hard out of the hairpin. Svan wasn't able to hold on to them, and Schistad was trying to get around Lynn Svan, and that costed her even more time. So she started the final uphill already on the back foot, and from that point onwards it was a 1v1 between Emma Ribom and Jonna Sundling, PTO elite girls. They train together a lot. I think they are quite close friends, and unlike in Gällivare when it was a marginal win by Jonna Sundling, this time it's by Emma Ribom. She wins here again. She won here 1 year ago, but that was without Sundling, and also Maja Dahlqvist fell in the final, so last year it was a bit more lucky. This year it is really hard-earned, hard-worked win, and congratulations to Emma Ribom because she properly distanced the rest of the field. With Frida Karlsson once again really strong on the final part. She got 4th place, so by far the best one of the more so distance skiers. I'm interested how she would stack up against Tyrell Udnes-Wenck. Now Tyrell is not here because of her COVID case, and remember Tyrell was the overall World Cup winner last year, and I think she's a good benchmark of what do you need to do in the sprints as a distance skier to be able to win the World Cup. That's probably the target of Frida Karlsson. If she's able to keep up so good form in sprints, now this course really suits her on more of a flatter course, which would also suit Schistad more than Ribom and Sundling, although Sundling has also a bit more of that engine. That's probably not a good territory. Also, that wouldn't probably be also good territory for Karlsson, but that 4th place is really promising for her fight in the overall World Cup. And now we're left only with the men final, and it was a Norwegian win, but not from Johannes Kleibo. It was Erik Valnes, just like in 2020, although this time he wasn't challenged real close by Kleibo. He won clear ahead of Jouve. Kleibo was 3rd and Pellegrino in 4th, so Pellegrino and Jouve switched around, and this time it was Jouve super strong on the final uphill. Pellegrino wasn't weak either, but that final was super hard. Evensen and Jensen properly gapped, and I'm gonna talk about positioning once again, because I think Kleibo, similarly to Schistad in the women final, played himself a little bit He's usually very good in the whole tactical awareness and the mind games part of the sport, but that was not the case today. So he entered, just like Shistad, the descent in bit further position. He was third behind Richard Jouve, and Valnes kicked really hard out of the hairpin. But that was not the problem. The problem was Jouve either didn't kick hard enough from the hairpin, or he didn't really have skis. So Kleibo tried overtaking Jouve on the descent. He couldn't go past him. He tried to go through a different line on the uphill. He was on the inside line next to the barrier, but that one was closed by Valnes. Not like Valnes didn't force Kleibo out of the track. He was clear ahead of him, but he blocked Kleibo's way. So Kleibo went back to the lane behind Jouve, and all that track change cost him a lot of time. I think in the end he went back to the lane where Valnes was leading. So I don't think better positioning would give Kleibo a win today. I still think Valnes was clear. The form he's in is terrific, and also Kleibo doesn't seem to be in prime shape either. That's why I also don't see him getting a great result tomorrow. I mean, great result for his standard. I think second was well within Kleibo's reach, but Valnes was the man today, and that's a well-deserved win. We'll see if he will be able to challenge Kleibo long term. We always ask this question whenever Kleibo loses in Ruka. It was the same in 2020 when Valnes won. The same story next season when Alexander Terentiev won in Ruka ahead of Kleibo, and he properly distanced him. But then in Olympics and also in Oberstdorf the year before, Kleibo was clear of them. No world champs and Olympics this year, so there's no event to target for. But I would still expect Kleibo to get quite better in the latter part of the season. Maybe already before Tour de Ski he will be in his optimum shape, because with this COVID recovery it is a little bit of a drawing. Some athletes can recover quite fast, others because of COVID got their whole season tarnished. But that would be it for today's competition, both in men and women's competition. I think Ribom and Valnes are very well deserved winners. My only big question mark after today is how would Markus Grotte stack up in the final, because without the crash I'm pretty sure he would be able to reach it. Maybe he would be able to challenge Kleibo for the podium. Imagine the World Cup sprint podium without Kleibo. That would be pretty insane. Grotte will have his chance in Gällivare next weekend, but tomorrow we will have 10k Classic interval start. Last year it was won by Kleibo and Ebba Andersson, but I'm not gonna bet on both of them. Kleibo is definitely not in his greatest shape, and Ivo Niskanen, on the contrary, looked very, very good in Munio, so he's my candidate for win tomorrow. And Kleibo, maybe he will be within top 10, but I don't expect too much from him. But top 10 I think is reasonable, but podium will be quite hard. On the women's side, I'm gonna put Ebba Andersson on third spot, because she lost out in Gällivare to Frida and Moa Ilar in the 10k freestyle. In Classic she won, but that was against Emma Ribom and co. Frida and Ilar were not competing, and last year when Ebba won the 10k Classic here, She was actually able to win the freestyle races against Carlson in Gällivare. So I'm putting Ebba in third, and I think it will be between Katarina Hennig and Frida Karlsson for the win. Now, Karlsson looked really strong today, but I'm still sticking with Katarina Hennig. But I think it will be super close between them. The course maybe suits Frida a bit more, but she will be fatigued slightly more than Katarina after today. I'm sure it will be pretty interesting. The competition starts tomorrow, I think around 11, at 10. At 10 it starts for women and at 12:15 for men. So that's the schedule for tomorrow. And in the schedule, there's also another episode of the podcast I'm planning to upload after the 10K race on Saturday. And there will also be a pod after Sunday mass start. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to not miss any of them. And we'll hear each other on Saturday. But until then, ciao.